Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Winnigan Academy. Mark Moyer, another great networking event this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. Winnigan Academy, or I will be there. Reach out for details. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. We got everything kinked out here. We got David De Cristofaro on the Wolff Den. Welcome, David. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Excited to be here.
You left me solo, and it's not a good look with me just sitting there talking to myself. But I tried, and so we got a short time here today. But give everyone a quick intro to who you are, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Let's see. I work on events, productions, everything from Coachella's Super Bowl halftime show. I'm going to be doing some of BTS's residency in Vegas coming up, among other events. And I'm happy to find some time to talk. This is great. It's good to connect with you. Good to chat. I'm going to be speaking on a fan engagement panel with Cal State coming up on March 22nd. And then at NAMM's career and music panel at the Idea Center at the Anaheim Convention Center this June 4th. So it's good to have a chance to connect, to start to kind of get this conversation going. Obviously, it's an exciting time, right now with South by getting ready to kick off to sort of start these conversations. Also want to encourage people to check out New Orleans Music Tech. That's going to probably be one of the best events coming up too, if you're into that intersection like I am of live events, technology, and just kind of where that's all headed. But I work in music festivals, major artist tours on the fan experience programs, VIP programs, but also at the intersection of business, tech, intellectual property laws, things like that, just policy making and stuff that's going to be moving a lot of our industry forward in the years to come as new technologies start to kind of streamline a lot of what we do, whether it's fan engagement on site at the intersection between digital and physical environments, but also in terms of performance, revenues, how we build these events out. That's really where my interest and excitement is.
Yeah, speaking of music festivals, I was talking to myself again, but talking about all the music that's coming up for me, and really, really excited about it. I'm going on the Beach Boys cruise, which is a 6-man event in a couple weeks. It's got the Beach Boys, some variation, Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. It's got Emerson Hart from Tonic, Sugar Ray, Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, Joe Piscopo. And so that's, it's a music festival on water. Have you ever been on a music cruise?
My friend Elliot has. As a matter of fact, for all I know, he might be working on that. So I'll have to ask him and see if he's going to be on that one so you guys can meet up if he is. But I'm
Does
familiar with
he work for 6-man?
He's been doing their cruises, so I'll have to ask him and see if he's doing that one. But yeah, I'm familiar with him. I haven't done one just yet, but I'm kind of interested to jump on one and do it. I haven't been able to with my schedule as of yet, but I'm definitely kind of keeping an eye out and just seeing if maybe there's one, does present that opportunity, because I'm just curious to see, what it's like. Right? You get into different live event environments. I'm kind of a human SWOT analysis. Like I'm always paying attention to strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, trying to kind of identify, hey, what are the high points and the values and the strengths that these event brands have to offer and these environments have to offer. Also, where's all the untapped opportunities? Because every one of them is rich with those. There's always kind of this really, plentiful number of untapped opportunities in these event spaces, because a lot of what they do is based on muscle memory. And the reason that I use that specific term, and this goes back to an event that my friend Elliot and I were at, was Polestar. When Polestar Live first came back about a year ago, they had this really interesting panel during Production Live, which is, a production-oriented day of their programming there, where on the panel, a representative from one of the major promoters, one of the world's biggest promoters, got up and said, "Yeah, we're gonna rely a lot on muscle memory," and that really kind of caught my ear, because my question was why. Like, I get it, I understand why he would say that, But what I mean is, why settle for that? Why settle for relying on muscle memory when we've just had a year and a half to, really put systems under evaluation and put things under the microscope and look at how we can do things better. And I think that invites a lot of really interesting conversation into like events like that, like destination events, festivals, because when you get into those spaces, especially with music festivals, a lot of it relies on that. They bring back a lot of the same people to work a lot of the same positions, and some of that's good. Some of that's good because they're the people that also are working in their offices. They're the people that have their eyes and ears sort of the heartbeat, of what it is that they're working in. That's a good thing. In other cases, you might be bringing back people based on this is like a common practice with major music festivals. They just bring the same people back each year to work the same positions or subcontract to the same people. And they're good people, but are they the best people for that job? Are they better people out there that can help move you forward and help advance things in that area? Are there systems? Are there resources? Are there things that we can look at that we can bring in instead of just relying on muscle memory, in the production and operations of these events that can improve them? So, at an event like that, where you're asking these questions, I think it's really interesting that topics like that get mentioned. You hear people get up this same day, that production live. It was really incredible. This was in 2021, to be, fall, like end of summer 2021. And they forecasted, as we were about to kind of see that whole slew of festivals come back, where they were like triple and quadruple scheduled on every weekend in like September, October.
Crowded.
Right. This was right before all that. And they forecasted it. They said, we're going to get supply chain issues. They said, we're going to experience, these challenges. And sure enough, you skip ahead to a few weeks ago when they had this year's edition of Polestar. They ended up getting up the same day of production live and talking about those very issues that they encountered. So it's interesting that we had all this time, to kind of look at that, coming back and seeing like, what's gone well, what hasn't, what's worked, what hasn't, what's been applied and what hasn't, and what issues or successes have been, the result of that. During sort of the return to festivals and the return to events, that's been like a really interesting thing to kind of watch unfold. And so that is definitely kind of like a cultural obstacle in that space, is when you're building out destination events and you're building out festivals, from production to their position hiring, it's like a cultural obstacle, is that muscle memory thing, because some of it's good, but some of it, it's healthy to evaluate. It's healthy to look for, how it can be improved.
Yeah. Well, speaking of destination festivals and supply chain issues, our guest tomorrow might have some pretty good stories about the Fire Festival. We'll see. We'll see what she decides to divulge here. But she knows some stuff and has some stories if she's willing to share. So tune in tomorrow to see that.
I'm sure that's going to be a fascinating conversation.
Well, that's like a side thing. She's got a great company that has nothing to do with music festivals,
right.
but that's a side. We'll get into that hopefully.
Yeah.
When we talk about music festivals, you talk about the destination festivals, the 6-man. It's like there's so much stuff out there in the festival world that's more than just music. And you actually just worked one recently, right? The Innings Festival in Arizona. Did you make it out there? I know you said you were going to.
Yeah, I did. It was great. It was great to be back. I like that group a lot. I like the people that are working behind some of the departments there, and I like that event a lot because I think that it really aligns with an important aspect of the future of doing destination events, and so does these 6-man cruises, which is curated travel, active travel, family travel. Kind of understanding that there's an opportunity to sort of integrate, with the other things that people, will travel and pay to travel to go do, and combining them. So in the case of Innings Festival, they're combining spring training for baseball, which a lot of people are traveling there normally. Obviously, there's a lockdown, going right now, a lockout, sorry, or whatever it is.
It's a lot.
The MLB, right? Yeah. As they negotiate new stuff with the league. But under normal circumstances, spring training is taking place. And what was interesting is you have all these Major League Baseball players, past and present, that were excited to get out there and do something because they're looking for stuff to do right now because it's not going
How
on. But
how did it affect the event? Because I assume some people didn't go who normally would have gone to spring training. Maybe they might not be able to get everyone they wanted to because of the lockout. Is there any indication how it changed, or was it better, worse?
I'll put it this way: something I say all the time, Matt, is that you get what you book, right? And this really came from when I was in college and I worked for one of the biggest promoters in the world, helping open one of their new venues in Philly, where it wasn't necessarily in their paperwork, but they went to great lengths to bring out their head of security from LA to kind of do these trainings that were geared around, safety, right, liability, and there was a central theme that came up time and time again, was that the three most kind of logistically challenging and problematic and at times volatile, genres that you can book were EDM, jam band, and hip hop. And it wasn't a reflection of the genre itself or necessarily liking that genre. So there's no need to defend the genres, but what it did reflect was the quality of risk that came in with the type of fans that it drew, the volatility that kind of came in with those genre demographics. So time and time again, they talk about, the three most volatile or problematic genre demographics you deal with were EDM, jam band, and hip hop. And this has proven to be true over the years that I've worked on shows like that. And it's, again, not a reflection or indictment of the genres, but instead it's just all the logistic and revenue challenges that those specific demographics bring in. So as I started to kind of look at events and put them under the microscope and study them, I think there's some really great case studies of how to make adjustments to your event brand. And I think that a really great one is actually Bonnaroo. You look at Bonnaroo, it was anchored in jam band for a very long time, and they pivoted. They brought in U2, as a headliner, and you still had jam bands represented, but what you had was a more diverse lineup from that point forward. And they've been kind of like honing it and adjusting it and developing it each year, where you still have, acts and music that's satisfying to that core demographic that you've built a relationship with. But at the same time, you're improving your overall attendance and quality of the type of crowd that you're bringing in. And so I think that's a really good lesson that can be learned about how to adjust your lineups, because you get what you book. And so that, I think, sort of speaks to situations like this one, right? You could have booked any act for innings if you felt like it was in the kind of general radius of the type of genre acts that you book. But what they did is they anchored their lineup with the Foo Fighters and with Tame Impala. And Tame Impala is a really frequent festival band. They draw a pretty faithful crowd. But the Foo Fighters, they're one of the they're one of the biggest rock acts in the world right now. They typically play stadiums. You're getting a stadium crowd if you book them.
Yeah.
So as far as attendance, if you anchor your lineup with a couple acts like that, you're getting a good mix of the type of crowd that's going to come out for Foo Fighters, but also the type of festival crowd, the younger crowd that's going to come out. So you're doing good on your 2 days, but also good on single day. So I think, to answer your question, attendance, that took care of that. Like, that kind of addressed that to me, was that you're doing a good job of making sure that you're covered on the festival end of things, the music end of things, because you also have a really good mid card with acts like Fitz and the Tantrums, Matt and Kim. Your lineups are good for those.
Fitz are probably one of the people I would look forward to the most. And then Saturday, Low Cut Connie played. Did you get a chance to check them out?
Yeah. I didn't because I was working, but you're right about Fitz. Noel from Fitz is a friend of mine. We actually had a chance to catch up for a few while we were at the festival. It's a good lineup. I mean, they had, if I remember correctly, I think it was about a 30,000 attendance when I worked with them in 2020. It was the last festival that I worked on before the pandemic. It was literally the weekend before the Thursday that the whole industry kind of shut down. And we had about I think a 30,000 attendance over 2 days, with Dave Matthews and Weezer anchoring, the lineups. But I actually liked the mid cards a little bit more this time around. I thought it had a better draw. So I'll be interested to see what those final numbers were. But I think that addresses that and kind of takes care of that. And then, there's the baseball side of it. Now, this is really where it's exciting and interesting because you think about combining music and the cruise, right? Or you think about combining music and spring training. It can get really interesting when you start to get into the data and kind of figure out how to optimize the booking for events like that, where you're finding the cross sections, right, of those audiences that you can tailor to. I think that's really the future. That's really where it's getting interesting. Is designing events.
Was Roger there?
What's that?
Was Roger Clemens there? I know he was supposed to be.
I didn't see him. I swung by to see if he was. I don't know. I can neither confirm nor deny. I'll have to double check on that one because I actually I had a break and I walked by to see if he was out. I didn't see him, so I'm not sure. I'll have to check, but it was really interesting. They got a really great program there with the ball players. Ryan Dempster, who's a great guy. I've had a chance to kind of meet him and talk with him a bit doing that event a couple times. He has this off the mound show that he does that they kind of use as sort of like the curation anchor, like it has its own stage. So they have all this really cool kind of experiential baseball themed exhibits and activities and things like that peppered around the event. Lots of really good photo opportunities and stuff that give baseball fans just as much to do as music fans. And so I love it. It's a great event. I was happy to be back there. It was nice to kind of have that full circle experience. And I love the way that they kind of dial into the music vacation concept, similarly to the way that the cruises do. My favorite example of this, I think it's the greatest music festival of all time, and just like the kind of pinnacle case study for these types of things was Desert Trip. I loved that.
That's the home base, or
that's the one with Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, and the Who, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. So they did this festival on the same polo grounds where they do Coachella and Stagecoach back in October of 2016. And I was there working on it with a lot of people, and it basically capped attendance at 75,000 people per weekend over 2 weekends. But it was the highest grossing music festival in history just on pre-sales, before they ever sold anything on site. And I think it's important to look at that as an optimization and economic model for how to build out, your destination events now, because they understood how to leverage the artist brand draw, and it's easy to look at something like that, Matt, and say, oh, well, that's easy to do when you have Paul McCartney and the Rolling Stones and these other acts. And you know what? They're right. There's truth to that. But if you look at it in terms of relativity, there's pop artists and big rock artists that play those same venues that those same headliners do in that 6-act show. There's also plenty, if not more, that play the same venues as those mid-card ones. And if you put together a 6-act lineup that has that much punch in another genre, you're going to have similar, if not greater, success, especially if it taps into some of the most prized demographics in music. If you can tap into those I jokingly call it like the Taylor Swift demographic, where you're getting multiple revenues because people are coming with their friends, they're coming with their moms, their dads, all their family stuff like that. It increases everything. And so I think that's a big feature is that fan show know, friends, families, just the
I think you're breaking up a little bit to see here. It's you have to have a diverse lineup with a festival because you don't want to have just heavy on the headliners. People won't show up until 4 or 5 o'clock, and they need people to be buying food and drinks and to have walking around for the people in the festival. So it's really good to see the diverse. I want to go back to the Innings Fest for a second because this year they're starting a Tampa Innings Festival for the first time, and it's got a great lineup. Green Day's in there, and but it's a good. I think it's a good idea because they're so like Arizona is not that easy to get to, right? And Tampa's not that easy to get to. So you kind of look the people who love them and want to go visit a festival, they're going to go. But you also give people an option to say, hey, if this is your kind of thing, this area is a lot easier to get to. So having that type of event on both the East Coast and the West Coast, I think is a smart idea. We'll see how it works. Certainly, they have a good enough lineup to start, and then the baseball aspect of it. But they're not going to be playing spring training by the time that comes around next weekend either.
Right. And obviously, that's not, again, same situation, right? As of this time, and that could change between now and that event. But as of this moment, spring training isn't happening. But what they're doing is something that makes complete sense, right? Is they're making sure to have this integrated on site, on location, where spring training is happening for both the American League and the National League. And that's really, I'm telling you, man, the future is smart events. It's smart events. It's doing things smarter. It's really aligning with and integrating with, places that are tourist destinations and places that people want to go to for destination experiences where the travel, the costs are streamlined. It creates more opportunities for partnerships. It's going to really take off more and become a lot more sleek and streamlined. I'm really excited to see what this looks like moving forward.
What was the event in Vegas? They were supposed to come up with a gaming and a music festival, and then they never went through it.
So I'll be working on one there in a couple weeks. It's an NFT based music festival, and they've done a couple of them like this, right? So Amazon did one right before the pandemic, that was very tech and experientially oriented, and the Foo Fighters played that one, if I remember correctly. And I don't, if people remember, the festival that really kind of foreran that is Panorama, New York City, which is one of my favorite festivals. They rolled out experiential tech exhibits for fans year to year, and really built out some things that I think were awesome and a little ahead of the ball, because they had VR experiences where they were putting 360 cameras on stage where you could go into their pods in another part of the festival and throw on a headset, and it would put you on stage with whichever stage you chose, with whichever artist was performing at the moment. On stage left, you could look over the crowd, you could look across the stage. There's a lot of things like that they kind of got out ahead of. Gaming festivals are starting to kind of take off. Kevin Lyman, who's one of the people that I was fortunate enough to spend some time learning under and being mentored by, coming out of school, did a really great one out at the fairgrounds out in Pomona, kind of right before the pandemic too, that I'm really interested to see, if that's something that continues, because I think it was really an interesting concept, was to kind of create a festival centered around gaming instead of music. The thing is, and I have no idea what the trajectory of something like that's going to be. I think that exists in other forms already. Like if you look at cons, right, conventions and things like that, that already exists. So I think, the question becomes the same one that Lollapalooza faced when it returned and did its first year returning as a touring festival again, which I remember that. I was there. I attended one of those dates. Do they continue to do that like they used to during the 90s, or do they become a destination event? And they successfully...
David, the cons are more of a convention that has some music. These are more like music feels like Sound Money. They're doing Sound Money in Miami. It's a Bitcoin, but they have Logic and Steve Aoki and Dead Mouse. I mean, that's like a festival. That's not, we're bringing a couple acts to play some music.
Right. And what those artists share in common, and this is where I'm going with this, Matt, is that destination. So the same way that Lollapalooza had the sense to pivot to a destination festival, we're being challenged right now to think differently about destination events, because with artists like those that are predominantly digitally based and electronically based, right, and events like that are predominantly electronically and digitally based, you have the option of doing them decentralized in a virtual space. And we saw that a lot over the last couple of years, whether it was concerts taking place in Fortnite, or metaverse meetups, virtual concerts over the course of the pandemic. So you have the ability to do one, the other, or both as a hybrid event now. But it's still, it's still the idea of doing it as a destination event. And so what I meant by the reference to cons is that kind of offered a physical sort of like groundwork or foundation for infrastructure that could be recreated digitally and recreated virtually. And we saw that happen over the last year. We saw them kind of really develop virtual spaces. So, yeah.
We always talk about Mount Rushmore's here. Brent, a longtime listener, wants to know, what's your Mount Rushmore of festivals? The 4 best. It could be, give me the 4 best that you know. You don't even have to have been to them, just the 4 best.
Yeah, 4 best. Definitely Desert Trip. Nothing compares to it. Coachella is easily, the next one. Let's see, the best. I gotta tell you, it's tough to pick.
It's all subjective too, because it depends on the lineup and the weather and all that stuff. But
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and I know Lollapalooza is the next one. That's no question for me. It was the kind of like OG kind of, godfather of the modern music festival. So it's easily Desert Trip, Coachella, Lollapalooza. It's that last one that I'm thinking of. I'm inclined, this could change, right? Because you never know. There's other ones that are really doing well and taking off. I love what they're doing with Firefly. I love what they're doing with Day in Vegas. I would say right now, though, ACL, I think it's not. I'm not going to say what I dislike and dislike about it, because I just think it's a great branded festival. It's one of the best visually branded festivals. I think that would be up there.
ACL is now 2 weekends, right? In Coachella, 2 weekends, and Summerfest. Do you like that, having over 2 weekends? I'm not a fan of it.
It depends on the event. You know what I mean? Like, it really depends. Like, if you have a big enough demographic and a big enough draw where you can sell over 2 weekends, it makes sense to do it.
Yeah. What? Give me your. We're gonna have to have you back on. We're running low on time, but give me your favorite festival you've ever been to, and give me a festival that you've never been to that you would love to go to.
Oh yeah, favorite. So best would be Desert Trip. Favorites Firefly, and one that I've not been to that I want to go to is Lollapalooza, because I've kind of like flirted with work. Like, I've had a couple times where I've been in talks and it just didn't work out schedule wise, or I had something set up and had to change it because of my schedule.
Who was that?
What's up?
Oh, sorry. I thought you said who was at Firefly when you were there? That was your favorite. Do you remember?
Oh, well, my first year there was 2015. That was the Paul McCartney year. And okay. I've been very fortunate to work multiple festivals with Paul, where I've been able to go down in the pit, after work and experience that. And it was just, as somebody that grew up as a Beatles fan, seeing him for the first time, being near the stage, having these really powerful moments, hearing these songs live for the first time, really was a life-impacting experience. So,
did you like the movie Yesterday?
Mixed feelings about that one. I love the director. I love his old movies. I think it had a lot of potential, and there was just a couple things that didn't land, and a couple things that kind of came off a little rough around the edges. I like the concept. I like the
What
concept
song,
about
what
it.
song would you pick? If you could go back in time and you would be the writer of any song and you could pick any song. It doesn't have to be the Beatles, it could be any song in the history of music. What song would you pick?
Wow, that's a tough one because I can think of like 4 off the top of my head. Oh man, I want to preface this by saying I've thought about questions like that before because I've heard people talk about it, and I just don't think I ever could realistically say I'd want to do that because I can't think of it any other way. As, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick something like you know. Like Twist and Shout or like like Everlong. Foo Fighters Everlong is one of my like 2 favorite songs. That's something cool. Like that, right? That like really kind of I can listen to anytime.
Well, look, we got short on time. I could talk music festivals all day long. We're going to have you back on another time, and we'll let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question we get everyone out of the Wolff Den on. You can meet anybody in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Spend a day with them. Who is it, and what are you guys going to do?
Paul McCartney, because I want to pick his brain. The Beatles have had some of the best things to say about the concept of love. And I just would be really interested to spend a day together just talking about topics like that, faith, just spirituality, stuff like that, and just hear from him what that means to him, what that looks like to him, and just share conversations about that. I really enjoy doing that, and I get a chance to do that from time to time, just on the side with artists that I'm friends with or have built a relationship with. And, I think you asked me where. I'd love to just kind of like, I actually had a chance to walk around his old neighborhood a bit in Liverpool and wouldn't mind that, that would be fun, to kind of take a walk around.
My friends that I met in Key West who live in Liverpool, who met me in London when I went there, came here for my wedding, are coming here in a week or so, and they're coming on the Beach Boy cruise with us. So it's we'll probably talk a little bit about the Beatles and all that. That's the first time anyone's mentioned him. That's a great choice. And look, if we ever get a chance to make it happen, we're gonna do it for you. But we'll definitely have you back on. Want to hear about all your festival stuff and what you're going to and what your thoughts are, and then we'll have you back on to finish it off.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I look forward to talking a little bit more about the tech stuff too. I think with ticketing, is a huge topic to kind of address on the front end of that, and I think that'll be a fun conversation to have too. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, stay tuned. Tomorrow we have another episode, and we will talk to you then.
All right.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
Appreciate it. All right. Bye.